We have the arrival of our chief guest. A big round of applause for this HTML Lit Fest. A creative person wants to be a know-it-all. He wants to know about all kinds of things, ancient history, 19th century mathematics, current manufacturing technique, or futures. Because he never knows when these ideas might come together to form a new idea. It may happen in the next 6 minutes, 6 months, 6 years, or maybe the next 6 hours. But he has a faith it will happen. Everything in the world remains to be done or done over. Greatest picture is not painted yet. The greatest play isn't written. Greatest poem is unsung. Physics, mathematics, and especially the most advanced and exact sciences are being fundamentally revised. Psychology, economics, and sociology are awaiting a Darwin, who in turn is awaiting an Einstein, whose work in turn is waiting on Shakespeare. Creativity is inventing, experimenting, growing, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes, and having fun. Over ambitious projects may be objectionable in many fields, but not in literature. Literature remains alive only if we set ourselves immeasurable goals, far beyond all hope of achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, Ideal Public School welcomes you to HT Lit Fest 2023 in collaboration with CBSE Sankalp Sahodaya. Our distinguished guests, ideating leaders, facilitators, students, and all the audience. How charming is this day, where we celebrate the fest of this magnitude. Let us take this opportunity to welcome our leader, Sri Akshay Kumar. Sir is a former Director General, Swachh Bharat Mission, and former Director General, Election Commission of India. He's made distinct contribution to mass media development and broadcast practices as Director General and Additional Director General in Doordarshan. He's represented AIR and DD in Southeast Asia and Bangladesh. He's an author and columnist in many newspapers. He's a member of the Indian Information Service, a specialist in information and communication with distinguished contribution to public service broadcasting in India. Is associated with two historic achievements in recent times: the sustained increase in voters' registration and turnout in Indian elections and the fulfillment of the Swachh Bharat Mission. Is a leader in development management in WASH, his water, sanitation, and hygiene sector. Is currently senior advisor providing strategic support to urban water and sanitation missions in the government of India. Is a member of the Prime Minister's Pragati platform for reviewing of large projects and addressing public grievances. He's an advisor with Union Public Service Commission, was a senior fellow with Navy London, served as a senior advisor with UNICEF, and the list is endless. I have to cut it short. May I request President Sankalp Sahodaya, Principal IT Public School, Dr. Siddharacharya, to kindly welcome sir with the appointment. A big round of applause for our guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I request to be kindly seated. May I request President Sankalp Sahodaya, Principal IT Public School, Dr. Siddharacharya, for the welcome address.
Namaskar. A very good morning to our guest gathering. In the realm of literature, every page is a portal to world uncharted, minds unexplored, and emotions untamed. Let the world, let the words of this festival be guiding stars to illuminate the endless possibilities of the written universe. In the symphony of words, a literature festival is the grand performance where authors compose, readers harmonize, and stories resonating a timeless melody that echoes the corridors of imagination. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Team CBSE Sankalp Sahodaya, I extend a very hearty welcome to our distinguished chief guest and iconic personality amongst us, Sri Akshay Kumar Rao, former Director General. There's usually who has read the whole his designation and all. The list goes on. So he's really, I have hijacked him for half an hour with a lot of emergency, and he has his family and another commitments. Lot of requests he is here. So I'm truly grateful to you for sparing some valuable time. It is my proud privilege to welcome the most eminent and illustrious poets, novelists, writers, artists, ideating principals, enthusiastic facilitators, dear students. I'm honored to welcome you today to the first ever initiative of CBSE Sankalp Sahodaya in the field of literature and cultural extravaganza, the HT Lit Fest at ITL publication. I welcome Rupali Haman here, HD Education Head. We are truly grateful to her. I know with a lot of exigencies and emergencies, she has come and make it possible. So thank you so much, Rupali. This is notably the day for us, which highlights outstanding personalities whose literary works have had a significantly positive impact on the legacy of humans. By tapping renowned creative personals from the diverse cultures, this event plays a great role in enhancing national cohesion and education. A platform like this provides an opportunity to rediscover our roots, Indian knowledge system, and remind us of our tangible and intangible heritage that has been in existence for generations. It is only through appreciating each other's thoughts and ideas that we will live in harmony as a community. Here it is befittingly said, it is a catalyst for intercultural dialogues. I'm confident that this event provides a beautiful and worthy forum for each one of us to love, appreciate, and showcase the diverse forms of cultural marvels, aesthetically created in 7 sessions. Be it the poetry that has a therapeutic effect, the authors delving in the deep-rooted meaning associated with in between the lines, deliberations on plot craft by distinguished author, the candid forum for students for human library. This is very close to my heart, human library, which we started this project during pandemic, Book My Story. And the ancient art of creating magic through storytelling, evocative experience of representing emotion through art. Today's Lit Fest culminates with textures and shades that will set up for strong resolution through its lens of logical and critical artistry on the to the impact it creates to our hearts, the seat of emotions. So we are talking of a lot of social emotional well-being and about emotions. We know our students who are very hard pressed, very stressed, and very easily they are getting this, which is very, very regularly used. So we have the session of therapeutic poetry. That's why we have curated that. This Lit Fest addresses contemporary concerns of students, giving them a unique literary perspective of ideas. I say this with a conviction that the next few hours will stimulate all the participants and members with many exciting new ideas and insightful perspectives. On behalf of Team Sankalp Sahodaya, I thank HT Education, our partners, for their unwavering support. I also extend my gratitude and appreciation for our parent, Mr. Nishant, for capturing the entire event with match. He's present here. We are grateful to you. So this is a beautiful partnership with school and family. Let us all remember that the true achievement of programs like LitFest is the establishment of new relationships, friendships that paint our lives canvas with a variety of colors. Friends, it is time to celebrate the power of words and strokes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Expression is the fundamental to cross-cultural dialogue. We elegize our culture, we praise and honor a land which is so rich and versatile. Bande Utkala Janani was written by the poet Lakshmi Mohapatra. The poet envisages Utkala, one of the former names of the present day Odisha, who maintains her self respect and dignity from a position of confidence and strength rather than insecurity and fear. Poem inspires every Odia move ahead in life. So it is not only about Odisha, it is about a country which is so rich and so old. Thank you, dear student. It gave us a breather. Sometimes we are too much in a hustle mode, and I think when the students were performing, it was an indirect, message coming to us. Take a breather, think about it as to what we are doing. So thank you, students. May I request our chief guest, Shasta, to kindly come and address the August Catherine, sir.
Good morning, respected principals of various readings of here and the galaxy of textbooks, literature practitioners, very talented previously for a long time. Only that, catalyze and make sure that literature has its traditions of the future. And teachers, the best description of all these teachers, I think that's the most accurate description of it. I think that is the meat, that is the what essentially makes all of you what you are, and me also what I am. We all are a bit of teacher, right? That's the best thing. So the dear teachers and most beloved students, the children of India. It's a privilege. In fact, when you come education, the institutions, campus, time stops. So all this half-hour business, Sudhaji, it's just not done because stops. Like literature is limitless, immeasurable. Like the when you're saying that it is immeasurable impossibility, it doesn't have a limit. So is the educational campus. If you come to a place where literature learning is nurtured all the time, you should not look at time. All these half an hour, 45 minutes, or 30 minutes, these are because we are into a different game, like literature, we are in a different game. So very happy to be here, but I still wonder why I am here. Because in front of me, it's like a postcard, the Chashme Sari of Srinagar or Mughal Gardens in Rashtrapati Bhavan. I love our children, but all the possibilities are right in front of me. So, but I know why I'm here. It's a lit test. And how do I qualify for it? So I found three clues. One is, I studied as my first master's degree. Maybe that could be one connection because I read a lot of Shakespeare tragedies as well, among other things. I debated on what's the tragic in the tragic heroes of the Shakespeare tragedies, the Nemesis, the Narcissus, and all sorts of difficult concepts. I went on that, but I went into most ungainly debate of did Shakespeare really exist? because so precautious in the talent, did someone like Shakespeare exist? I also went into a little more meaningful debate, is that Shakespeare's plays are actually to be read, not to be staged. So maybe that connection, then I also lost my paradise and gained back my paradise reading John Milton. I went into the metaphysics of John Donne, because satirical approach to life I developed through Alexander Pope. And many times often I have thought myself as a lotus eater, like Alfred Tennyson. And finally, like Emily Dickinson, I'm nobody, who are you? I got into all this. Literature helped me to feel and feel all this. Maybe that's why I'm there. I said, no, that could not be the sufficient reason. Maybe because I do pretend to write some things these days. And someone generously describes me as I am not. And I comment on few issues. They interest me because I live in this world and I think. So I comment on certain issues, I write some things. There is subordinate literature maximum. No, not literature. So I do some writings. Maybe because of that. But then I found something which is for sure true of me and you and everyone. Because I think. And when I think, sometimes I speak. Today I am doing it. And sometimes I write. Because I think. And I'm sure all of us have a thinking person in ourselves. Students may have, children have. They say that age is a reducer. I don't know. Some people say that age is an enhancer. Enhancer or reducer. But the fact is that I never stop thinking. And that qualifies me. That certainly qualifies me. And that qualifies everyone to be here. That qualifies the literary festival, the lead festival here. This school has always inspired this school leaders. Because I do not find teachers and practitioners, I don't find education learning, I find education activism here. A lot of thinking, and among all of CBSE Sankalp Sahodaya. And I am thankful to HT Group and HT Education particularly to organize this. Because there could not be anything more important for all of us in our lives, in the country. Then having this tradition go on. If you look back into our own lives, whenever we felt a little low, we always refer back to something getting spoken. In the nation's life as well, we refer back to nations, we refer back to our big epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata. These days, even till today, we are fortunate. India is a fortunate country. We have huge amounts of vernacular literature which are embedded in history, embedded in mythology, embedded in contemporary life. And even if you talk about global literature like English, the next English today is basically Indo-Aryan. I think we are there, up there. And that has given a lot of sustenance to our life. So, school is not only a place of learning, it's a place of literature. It's learning in literature. And sometimes we tend to feel, but I have felt it that way, like my children have felt, like PCM, other subjects. Literature, just joy and happiness and something like literary festival. PCM are subjects. Because we score. But believe me, young students, in UPSC these days, in civil services, literature has started scoring as well. Don't forget it. Most of them qualified, many of them have literature, some literature of their choice of the subject. And of course, we can't, just now the principal of the school and others also are talking about the power of the word. And keeping it on one side, that's huge strength of the word, which you will find in many ways coming up in this literary festival. Sometime we'll move into art, sometime into spacecraft, sometime into, I think we have leading personalities among us who will guide us in these activities. That gives another level of momentum. have seen that words are the thing. So literature, piece of literature is a thing that not only expands us, but get deep in it. There are not many instruments in life that both expand, get deep. I have seen literature. I do read a little bit, not as much as many of you would do possibly, not as much as I would like to do. Perhaps a literary festival gives all of us an occasion. Someone said, pause a bit, wonder a bit, stop time. Don't have to rush with time, stop time. Because it's not done in a hurry. It's not done in a hurry. Literature is something which is done, practiced, and lived, enjoyed, and gained on its own time. I just points to make. This is an important occasion. I would like, when we look at the influence of literature, interestingly, literature is both ways. It not only reflects life of any time, it also determines life. Very interesting. I have seen it. It determines life. It really influences life big time, but also reflects life. It does two things at the same time. There are not many who do both at the same time. When we are doing anything related to literature, it's always us. It has been said just now. The canvas is too large, but also let's canvas. If we're writing the history, if we're looking at the big stories of the country or the great nation, one person with there some. I think if we could address that through literature, both the large story and the small story. If we're having the stories, literature, cinema, drama about the migrants in COVID, the processions, let's also talk about the sigh of a small girl somewhere where abandoned. So I think if we don't do that, we will do injustice. Let's not forget, because I think big stories really inspire nations. But if something inspires life, living, and human beings, these are the small stories. So in this interest, anything that we pursue, if we could also have the eye for the small student, eye for the small ordinary person. In fact, I was also thinking another reason why I'm here. Because every big galaxy like we have here needs a small man also. Needs a small man. Otherwise, the galaxy is never complete. You need a very small planet somewhere, some dot, so that the galaxy is complete. So I look at literature like that. So do all big things, big ideas. This is one area in which I fully agree with, I think, a colleague who was mentioning, we must not, there is no stop. There is no stop. We must move on, we must expand, we must create, amplify, but also focus on the small. The last point that I want to say that I find a lot of relevance in literature, about literature in these times. I think a time has come when there is a need for a lot of dialogues. It was mentioned briefly, but I thought I will expand on it for a minute. There is need for dialogue. There is need for a talk within and among. So perhaps literature can facilitate it. We need, as the world moves on, we are seeing what is happening in West Asia, what's happening in the international situations, difficult situations. We are seeing what's happening in our country. Many times one would think that there is need for a little more dialogue. And for fostering a dialogue, as it was mentioned briefly, there is no other space, no other potent area, potent space than literature. So I'm sure that with these two, because again, I have a belief that I least qualified to what I'm doing here. I wish I could spend more time, learn a little bit from what's going to happen today and maybe happening in other venues thanks to HT Media. I could learn a little more, but I feel very privileged, very humbled. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very, very much.
Request sir to be kindly on stage. With this, may I request all the members of the Sahodaya office bearers to kindly come on stage. Shidu ma'am, kindly be on stage. Manisha ma'am. Jayashri ma'am to kindly be on stage. Raji ma'am to kindly be on stage. Himal Hatu ma'am, kindly be on stage, please. Anubha ma'am. Anubha ma'am, please be on stage. Bali ma'am also kindly be on stage. Sir, a small token and a gratitude for you from the entire team. May we have Manisha ma'am? We will request you to kindly present a small token to sir. Thank you, sir. Our memento for the Lit Fest. A small token of our gratitude. And another small token of our gratitude, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time. I request everybody to be kindly seated, but it's a Kodak moment. Maybe we want to take a nice pic too. Yeah. Just thank you. Thank you so much. Well, sir started with not knowing. Thank you. Before we start with our fest, we have few announcements which have to be made. Dear participant, you will have your escorting team for every venue. So are you excited about the fest? First of all, where is the team? Not speaking at all. All right. Okay. Arnav, are you there, Arnav? Just raise, yeah. So we have Arnav for storytelling, children who are participating in the storytelling. Students who are participating. Arnav will take you to the venue. Sarita ma'am. Ma'am is here. Mamta Neni ma'am is here. And Anubha ma'am as the principal moderate. See, the file up has to be in complete silence. You're going to enjoy it more. Okay, thank you. Students who are participating for the painting competition. Most of the lots have already gone down because we could not accommodate you all. It's full house actually. Anybody from the painting side right now? Do we have? Yeah. Okay. Can we have all right. Mishka, can you take the students who are part of the painting competition? Yeah. Wonderful. All right. All right. Prabnoor Kaur and Karsimar Kaur. Prabnoor Kaur and Karsimar. Okay. Karsimar, for language lab, Prateek, you may move to the language lab. For the human library. Prateek, you can just say hi to everybody. He's the one who's going to take section for human library. Okay. Yeah. Please, students, please follow the placard for the human library. Arshi Goyal and Ishit, please raise your placard. We have the author interaction that is in the library. Yeah, the plot craft. Tanshima, please take Sotapa, ma'am. Thank you. Teachers, I really like the incentive. Anybody left for human library, please? I request rest of the students kindly move forward. All those who are for the therapeutic poetry. Students who are for therapeutic poetry, kindly move forward. This is the venue for the participation. Students of the therapeutic poetry, Bakul, you can take the students forward. All therapeutic poetry. Sorry. In between the lines, that is not now, that is later pages. That's at 12. Rest of them can be seen. Thank you. Art doesn't give rise to anything in us that isn't already there. It simply stirs our curious consciousness and sparks a fire that illuminates who have always wanted to be. With this, our next session, therapeutic poetry. For students who have come for author interaction, that is in between lines, you have to stay put in the auditorium only. Kindly occupy the seats. We do not want students to be seated at the back. Please move forward. Volunteers, kindly see to it. Students to move forward. Teachers, we request you to kindly move forward. In writing poetry, all one's attention is focused on some inner voice. The act of writing poetry can be a great way to practice self-care, Everyone has a story that has shaped them into who they are. Whether we feel confident in our poetry skills or not, writing these stories can help us understand ourselves. May I request Ms. Rachna Pant, Director, Ramjas International School, Altipuram, to be the moderator for the session. May I invite Pant to be on stage? Our next panelist is Professor Anand Khatrisa. May I request sir to be kindly on stage? Sir is the founder of Poetry Society for Poetry. He's a theosophist, a poet, and a Reiki healer. He's the founder of the Poetry Society for Poetry. For him, poetry is an art of healing and a sign of spirituality. His books, 21 Seasons, Poetry as a Spiritual Art, has received representation from many academicians, including Dr. Radha Vallabh Tripathi, late Srimati Kapila, and Dr. Rekha Sethi. He is listed as a Kavita coach, as a Hindi poet on several platforms as a poet of English. May I now request Ms. Sunita Singh, our next panelist. Ma'am is a bilingual poet, writer, and a storyteller, conversant in both Hindi and English. She has also co-edited an anthology of Rosit sonnet poems. Her solo poems, Dance of the Flamingos, has also won an award. Recently, she has come out with a biography of her father titled The Making of the Chief Justice of India, Life in Times of Justice, Kamal Narayan Singh, which has been received well. Welcome, ma'am. May I request our next panelist, Professor Parichay Das. Namaskar, sir. सर प्रोफेसर एक अध्यक्ष नव नालंदा महावीर संविद्यालय से हैं। सर मीडिया और जन संपर्क प्रभारी नव नालंदा महावीर विश्वविद्यालय से सदस्य रह चुके हैं। सर भाषा पाठ्यक्रम समिति के ख्वाजा मोइनुद्दीन भाषा विश्वविद्यालय से लखनऊ से सर सदस्य रह चुके हैं। भाषा और साहित्य समिति के प्रधान संपादक रह चुके हैं। गौरवशाली भारत भाषा व गौरवशाली भारत व समाचार बिंदु के स्वामी विवेकानंद भारतीय विश्वविद्यालय मेरठ में हिंदी भाषा साहित्य व भारतीय संस्कृति मानद प्रोफेसर रहे हैं। सर इतने उच्च कोटि के हमारे जो पैनलिस्ट हैं, इनके लिए एक रिक्वेस्ट है आपसे, इनके लिए एक जोरदार ध्वनि से एक बार आप वेलकम कीजिए। प्लीज वेलकम आवर पैनलिस्ट, बिग राउंड ऑफ अप्लॉज। Shiva sir, I request to kindly take Ravinder sir to the ground for the painting competition. Thank you, Rachna ma'am. Over to you.
A very good morning to all of you. You know, students, amongst all the stalwarts here, you feel very small, especially when you sit amongst poets, writers, authors, because they are the people who feel, I feel, they actually see you inside out, isn't it? And that's what they write. Now, I personally feel that mental well-being is actually the need of the hour. Because of this, the Sahodaya, the Sankalp Sahodaya has actually taken this topic with the help of HT, because we see that students are going to counselors, they are going to psychologists, they are having lots and lots of issues. Why is it happening? It is happening because we are in the rat race of technology and technological matters. To take a corrective measure is what is a lit fest. That is what it is. And I sometimes also feel that human emotions, human sentiments, communication, understanding, humaneness, All these things come what? They come from where? They come from literature, because literature is life itself. And we youngsters, not me, but the youngsters, what is happening to them? They are running away from it more and more into technology, little realizing that after the age of 60, they have minimum another 30 years. What are you going to do in these 30 years? How are you going to live your life then? That is what is important. And as I say, remember, literature is anchor. Literature is a compass that will take you through the journey of life. So if you have that anchor, if you have that compass, it will tell you to stop somewhere, it will navigate you, and you will be in the right path. And you will not need to go to any counselor or any therapist, isn't it? And I also feel that profound, intimate, strong emotions, feelings which you experience, others will experience through you. And that is what literature is. Here I would like to tell you one thing more. There's something which they are talking about, therapeutic poetry. Now, therapeutic poetry goes on ages, from the ancient ages, from the Greeks or the Egyptians, or you take the bibliotherapy that you talk about, or the recent therapy that you talk about. You talk of Dale Carnegie, and in his books, he has written all this. What is all this? If you read that, you will understand, my dear children, that you are one with the other. And this therapy, poetic therapy, is a powerful form of self-expression. If you express your inner feelings, you will not need to go to a counselor. If you express your desires, you will be able to actually master it yourself. And just read a couple of lines which will tell you what therapeutic poetry is all about. In the depth of darkness, I find strength anew. Through words unspoken, I heal anew. In verse, I unravel emotions long suppressed. With each line I write, I find solace, I find rest. If you find that, you will be at peace. But without much ado, I would like to first ask Mr. Khatri, may I start with you? I was reading his little biodata and I realized that here is an architect who has turned into a poet. Now, what is it that made you actually turn into poetry, to start writing poetry? An architect is drawing lines, buildings. So what made you see that part of yourself?
Thank you so much. I'm very, very happy to share the stage with Parichay and Sunita and all the other members of Sankalp Sahodaya. It was enlightening to listen to Akshay Kumar Rao. And I must tell you that I was making notes, as to what is coming from him. Because he was making a lot of sense. One thing which he said very clearly is this meeting is a meeting of minds, And he said, I'm here because I'm a thinking human being. So it is very important for you all to understand that being something does not interfere with you being yourself. I'm a poet because I am myself. To inculcate the concept of poetry and my journey with you all, I'll share my recent, findings and concept which I am writing on these days. It's Homo sapiens, Venus sapiens. The story is very small. We are all born naked in a span of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. I'm 53 and I'm 15 more senior. We span a journey of millions of years. And that is where education, languages, family, friends, experiences, senses, everything plays a role. This particular theory that I'm talking about explains how human beings are multi-layered. We are at times just a physical body, at times an emotional body, and at times a thinking human being. And by the time you reach my stage, or as Akshay said, that as you grow old, you become better. You become better with your mind, with your thoughts. And that is the time when thoughts take over your emotions. You are doing everything through thought. You're not looking into yourself. In the age of emotional blindness, you really don't know which emotion to pick, what to think, what direction. When I started writing poetry in class 9, emotionally blind, and henceforth I was writing only in my age and in a boy, and being in a boys' school. Boys would not let me survive. They knew that there was a boy in between. So that was the time when I kept on writing in a very hidden format, and with growth, with career breaks, with birth of children, with marriages, with function was not much about writing. It was not much about rhyming. It was about the construction of human being through a language. What you read, what you celebrate, how you are, is your language. Languages play a lot of role because they are the carriers of wisdom. They are what you become today. There is a philosophy inside a language. I'll cite this for example, and then I'll go to the, answer. Like Hindi says, kal, aaj, or kal. There's a circularity in time. So without realizing, we are referring to a circularity, right? English says tomorrow, yesterday, and today. So there is a linearity of time, right? So similarly, language is constructed. Being an architect, I work on the language of form. I work on the language of spaces. My specialization is to understand how a human being reacts to a space. And there are many a times when I have written poetry before I have made buildings, or when I have seen buildings being constructed. So that is what is the interconnection of my being. Thank you.
Thank you so much for what you said. I could gather that very profound, intimate, innate, and deep awareness is what came to you, and that made you write poetry. That is what, as I could understand. And I think it gave a creative outlet to your thoughts in the form of your maybe buildings or on paper. So that is beautiful. So students, what I would like to say, it doesn't matter whether you are an architect or a scientist, whatever is inside you, give vent to it, give feeling to it. And if it comes genuinely from your heart, it will touch the core of another heart. And when it touches another heart, it will in turn make that heart more beautiful. And then the world itself will become very beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I will come back to you again, but I'll talk to Sunita ma'am. Sunita, while I was reading and listening to what was being told about you, you write poetry, you also write stories, and you are a storyteller. What is the role of poetry in your life? Because you are bilingual, you write in Hindi, you write in English, and maybe that is what you say, the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, as you say. But what is the role of poetry in your life? Why do you write? Well, thank you so much for having me, Sudha ma'am, Rachna ma'am, and I'm delighted and honored to be on this platform. Hello, children. So, role of poetry in my life, I'll just say that I started very young in the sense, like all children, I used to be a bit of a feel too much. And I don't know if this is the right word, but I was temperamental. I used to get angry at things. And when I was told, because I always questioned, And there were lots of tears. I think all of you will, teenage years are such, pre-teens. And my mother then told me, she said, like you, I started doing journal writing, diary writing, bolte the usko pehle. So she told me, why don't you write what you feel in your diary, and you'll see there's a difference. And believe me, it really, really helped. And so all of you who feel too much, like I do, I used to and I still do. I used to think that it is a shortcoming in my personality because I used to feel very deeply another person's pain and also my pain. But it is actually a strength. And writing, when I started journal writing, poetry writing, uh, my diary writing, I realized that all my emotions came forth, and slowly I started doing poetry writing, story writing. My teachers helped me. They told me to observe, we had that. Poetry has a very important role in my life, you asked me, because when I'm feeling very upset, uh, I do storytelling and everything, but my heart is in poetry. So when I'm feeling very upset, when circumstances get too much, like before, even now, so I will read an Invictus by William Ernest Henley, and I'll come to that, and I'll read a few lines from it. और बच्चन जी की कविताएं तो मेरे जिंदगी में in my life poetry has a very important role, and any kind of writing, essay writing, story writing, prose writing, that's all very good, but it is poetry which comes out to me, and in my hours, in my time when I'm upset or I'm feeling very low, it fills me with vigor, gives me courage to move ahead. Because then so many people have gone through circumstances, and that's when I read other poetry or bring out mine, and I find that after some time I'm feeling much better. So for me, poetry is therapy. Thank you. Thank you, Sunita. When I was listening to you, I realized that the topic that CBSE Sankalp Sahodaya along with HT has given, उनका संकल्प तो बिल्कुल सही है, क्योंकि as she has said that poetry is therapeutic, and from whatever she was saying, I could understand that it is very personal, it is very subjective, it is something which is processing. She is processing her emotions, and while processing these emotions, she is getting insight into her own thinking, why she's feeling the way she is feeling, thus expressing it, and in a way becoming it is a release. And once it is a release, then what happens? You are at peace. You are calmed down, and then you need to go to a counselor, please. Isn't it? So that is what I feel from her. Whatever she has been saying. Thank you so much, Sunita. And now I come to somebody who I'm scared of talking to be very honest. परिचय दास जी, आपका परिचय तो पढ़ करके मैं बिल्कुल हतप्रभ रह गई. मुझे तो समझ में नहीं आया कि कहाँ से शुरू करूं, कहाँ उसका अंत है, क्योंकि एक संवेदनाशीलता है उसके अंदर जो मुझे लगता है एक मनोस्थिति है जिसके बारे में आप बता रहे हैं, और मुझे लगता है बड़ी गंभीरता है, बहुत एक विशालता है उसके अंदर आपकी कविताओं में. तो मैं जानना चाहूंगी कि आपकी प्रेरणा कहाँ से मिली, कैसे आपने ये शुरू किया?
हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स साहित्य और संस्कृति उत्सव पर आप सबका स्वागत है. माननीय सुधा जी, रूपाली जी, रचना जी, आनंद जी, सुनीता जी, अनुभा जी और हमारे तमाम विद्यालयों के जो प्रधानाचार्य हैं, शिक्षक हैं, और हमारे प्रिय विद्यार्थी मित्रों, यह बहुत खुशी का विषय है कि हम जीवन में साहित्य का केवल प्रयोग नहीं करते, साहित्य को बरतते, साहित्य को धारण करते। कविता हमारे जीवन की अनुषंग के। मैं एक छोटा सा उदाहरण आपको दूंगा। सीता जी का हरण हो गया था, रावण लेके जा चुका था, और राम जी और लक्ष्मण जी खोजने के लिए निकले कि कहाँ सीता है, कैसे उनको खोजा जाए। तो आगे बढ़ते हैं तो वो देखते हैं कि बहुत तेज बारिश हो रही है पहाड़ों पे, पहाड़ और उन पर बारिश हो, इतनी तेज बूंदें हैं कि वो बारिश से पहाड़ के ऊपर तेज धार पड़े। तो तुलसीदास रामचरितमानस में क्या लिखते हैं, इससे आपको पता चलता है कि जो हमारी कविता की धारा और आज का जो विषय है कविता में उपचार परकता, कैसे उपचार करती है कविता हमारी जिंदगी का। तुलसीदास लिखते हैं कि बूंद अघात सहा गिरी कैसे। अब ये हम अर्थ बताएंगे आपको, पहले इसको समझ। बूंद अघात सहा गिरी कैसे, हल्के वचन संत सह जैसे। ये जो पहाड़ हैं, सुंदर जो पर्वत श्रृंखलाएं हैं, वो उन तेज बूंदों की धार को इस तरह से सहन करते हैं जैसे संत लोग दुष्टों के वचन को सहने। जीवन की थेरेपी, यह जीवन की थेरेपी, यह जीवन का जो उपचार परखता है, यह हमारी कविता की धारा से आता है। कविता हम केवल पढ़ते नहीं, कविता हमारी जिंदगी का हिस्सा है। हम टी.एस. इलियट को पढ़ते हैं, हम स्टीफन स्पेंडर को पढ़ते हैं, हम कबीर को पढ़ते हैं, रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर को पढ़ते हैं, सीताकांत महापात्र को पढ़ते हैं। हम पढ़ते हैं यानी खुद को पढ़ते हैं। अभी इतना तेज इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी का प्रसार हुआ है कि हम हर क्षण मोबाइल को हाथ में लिए रहते हैं, फोन करते हैं, सूचनाओं के अंबार में रहते हैं। क्या हमने कभी खुद को टटोला? क्या खुद को कभी देखा? क्या तारों के बीच कभी गए? कभी फूलों में हम गए, पत्तियों को कभी निहारा? किसी से प्रेम हो गया, किसी के प्रेम में पड़ गए हम? क्या हमने जिंदगी जी? ये कविता है। हमने तो सूचनाओं के अंबार में अपने को उलझा दिया। कविता हमें थेरेपी देती है, जैसे हमें जरूरत है। हम जिस तरह से अवसाद में, डिप्रेशन में चले जा रहे हैं, हमारे तमाम विद्यार्थी अपने जीविका की खोज में तमाम जॉब्स के लिए डिफरेंट टाइप्स के खोजों में जाते हैं। कोई इंजीनियरिंग में जाता है, कोई मेडिकल में जाता है, कोई MBA में जाता है। लेकिन अब जरूरत है जिंदगी में जाने, जिंदगी की कविता में जाने की जरूरत है। अब जरूरत है उस मेटाफर को लाने की, उस रूपक को लाने की जो हमारे भीतर के रिदम को, हमारे भीतरी लय को अंतर संचित कर सके। हम जानते हैं कि हमारी जीवन की शक्ति जो है वो भीतरी ताकत से, भीतरी इनर रिदम से, हमारे बाहरी रिदम से काम अब चलने वाला नहीं है। हम चाहे जितनी ताकत प्राप्त कर लें, पावर प्राप्त कर लें, पोस्ट प्राप्त कर लें, पैसे प्राप्त कर लें, सोफा प्राप्त कर लें, गाड़ी प्राप्त कर लें, लेकिन अगर भीतर को हमने खो दिया तो हमने सब कुछ खो दिया। इसलिए कविता हमारी वो भीतरी शक्ति है, इनर ताकत है, उसे हमें पाने की जरूरत। क्यों? क्योंकि कविता क्रिएटिविटी, सर्जनात्मकता है। पद सर्जनात्मकता नहीं, पैसा क्रिएशन नहीं, पोस्ट क्रिएशन नहीं, लेकिन पोएट्री और लिटरेचर क्रिएशन। मनुष्य की जो जाति है, ह्यूमन जो बीइंग है, उसकी हिस्ट्री इसलिए आगे बढ़ेगी कि उसने क्या क्रिएशन की, उसने सर्जना क्या की, उसने नई बात क्या कही। हिंदुस्तान अखबार में मेरे लगातार लेख छपते रहे, निबंध मेरे छपते रहे। अभी पिछले दिनों हमने भगवान बुद्ध पे एक लेख लिखा था, संपादकीय के लिए। हमने कहा उसमें कि भगवान बुद्ध ने तिथि शब्द का प्रयोग किया है, एक ऐसी दृष्टि जो मनुष्य के भीतर निहित हो। हर विद्यार्थी में वो शक्ति है, हर शिक्षक में वो शक्ति है कि अगर अपने भीतर को जागृत करे तो आत्मसम्मान का अर्जन हो, सेल्फ रेस्पेक्ट हो। कविता उस सेल्फ रेस्पेक्ट को पाने की सबसे बड़ी जद्दोजहद, सबसे बड़ी शक्ति है कि हमारे भीतरी रेस्पेक्ट को खड़ा करती है और हम अपने विद्यार्थियों से कहना चाहेंगे, माननीय शिक्षिकाओं से कहना, कविता केवल इंटेलेक्चुअल टफनेस नहीं, यानी बौद्धिक संश्लिष्टता नहीं है। कविता भीतर की सहज प्रवृत्ति भावना है, लिक्विडिटी है, तरलता। यह तरलता हमारे जीवन से खत्म होती जा रही है। हम क्या करें कि वो तरलता हम वापस लें। मैं तो बहुत खुश अनुभव कर रहा हूँ कि हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स साहित्य संस्कृति उत्सव ने यह आयोजन सुलभ कराया। मित्रों, कविता खुद उत्सव। जब जीवन के रंग आते, जब जीवन के रंग आते हैं तो कविता उत्सव बन जाती है। जिंदगी खुद फेस्टिवल। उस फेस्टिविटी को पाने के लिए हमें अपने भीतरी रंगों में जाना होगा, कि कविता के भीतर जाना होगा। हमारे जो शास्त्र हैं, हमारे ऋग्वेद में पहली कविता है, ऋचा है। एक ऋचाकार है महिदास, ऋग्वेद में आप जाइए, वो कहते हैं कि काश हमारी फसलें इतनी सुंदर होती, ये सुंदर हमारे जो हरे भरे पौधे हमें आकृष्ट करते हैं। देखिए कि जो हम पर्यावरण के पीछे आज पागल हुए जा रहे हैं, दिल्ली का पर्यावरण, पारिस्थितिकी इकोलॉजी, वो हमारे ऋग्वेदकार ने समय कहा महिदास ने कि हमारी परिस्थिति, हमारी हरियाली, हमारी भावना ही हरियाली बनती। आप जापान में जाइए, वो कहते हैं कि रोग ऐसे नहीं आते, आपकी भावना आपके अंदर रोग लाती। इसलिए थेरेपी आपकी भावना का प्रतिफलन है, कविता भी आपकी भावना का प्रतिफलन है। बहुत आपको धन्यवाद, बहुत आभार प्रकट करता हूं इतने सुंदर अवसर। बहुत आभार।
आपने तो गागर में सागर समा दिया है। आगे अब क्या बोलूं, बस मैं यही कह रही हूँ कि जो अभी थोड़ी देर पहले मैंने कहा था, टेक्नोलॉजी और टेक्नोलॉजिकल मैटर्स जो है, दे आर टेकिंग सेंटर स्टेज. Instead of that, if we do some corrective measures, we take corrective measures like HT is doing along with the Sankalp Sahodaya, it will definitely be beneficial for our students, the younger generation, because I feel it is going to detoxify ourselves. I feel that it will be a great creative outlet. I feel it will make the world a better place. I feel it will make you people more humane. I feel you will be more understanding, more resilient, more compassionate. That is what poetry does. While Parichay Das ji बोल रहे थे, मुझे एक चीज याद आई है कि life will throw rocks and stones at you. It depends on you. Do you consider it as an obstacle or a stepping stone? Think about it. So try and make it stepping stone and not obstacles, and keep on trying. And here, anyway, but before I say something else, because I talk a lot, I will again request Anand ji. Anand, could you now tell me or read a portion of your poem and then try and explain to the audience how you think it is therapeutic? We have a book there which talks about some healing art. Poetry is a healing art. So something to that effect.
But before I read my poem, I would like to pinpoint a few things, for my new upcoming authors. Poetry, as Parichay also said, and as Sunita also said, it's not the end product. It's a poetic consciousness, which you develop step by step. So almost 15, 20 years ago, when I started my poetry group called Belagam, so I used to tell people what are the stages of poetry. Before I recite something from my book, I would like to tell you as to what stages are there in developing this poetic consciousness. So poetry is a rhythm. In the beginning, you try to rhyme words. You try to rhyme words. You try to work on poetic meter. You try to mix meanings. You try to use metaphors. You try to improvise on language. So it becomes a language. And you see that poetry is the end product. You say that this is my poem. You never say that I am the output of my poem. So what Parichay ji and Sunita ji and Rachna ji had already explained in a way, I'm trying to put it in a different format. Poetry is not the end product that you carry in your book. It's the person that you become after writing the poem. So people return to poetry only because they relish that consciousness enhancement. They relish that sense of being that is there in poetry. So from being a rhyme of words, it becomes a rhythm of relationships and expectations. Like when you fall in love, when your heart breaks, when you achieve something, when you are jealous of somebody, when you feel that, as Rachna said, that life will throw stones to you. So when you are putting up those stones to make a hut for yourself, you're writing a poem. So then it becomes a rhythmic description of metaphors, because you realize that by using metaphors or metonymy, you are actually enhancing the power of languages, and you set up a relationship between the language and yourself. That is the third stage. Then there's the stage of rhythmic reconstruction. Poetic consciousness helps you reconstruct. Like I wrote somewhere that खुद से मैं अनभिज्ञ बहुत हूँ, मुझसे मेरा बोध करा दो. So I said कि I am not aware of myself. So I was writing in poetry that please make me aware of myself. So that is the stage of reconstruction. Then are poetic insights. While you are reading and writing poetry, like Akshari said that he read this author, he read that author, he read that author. He was borrowing auras of authors. He was borrowing the sense of thinking from those authors. And this borrowing of auras is actually imbuing yourself with those colors. And henceforth, you learn to think like those people, or you touch their thinking somewhere, you know. Like your parents tell you कि अपने साथ गीता जरूर रखना. It's not Gita. It's not your holy scripture. It's the energy, the auric energy that is there. The wellness that is required is in your emotional bodies, right? From this insight, it goes to intuition and affirmation. You know, a poetry, a prayer, a song, a national anthem, everything is a poem. You know, if I have to tell you कि तुम बहुत handsome लग रहे हो, तो मैं ऐसा नहीं बोलूंगा कि तुम बहुत handsome हो. I'll say तुम बहुत handsome. No, I'll emphasize on words. I will put pressure on syllables. I will end my words better, and I will maybe use gestures. So that is when poetry starts flowing into dance and other arts. That's how it connects. And then from there it goes to soothe and then to silence. So many of my authors from Belagaam crossed a lot of different stages. A small poem from my book, as said. In this book, I've written that poetry is not the art of writing, it's the art of listening. So, you know, what I'm reading out to you is something that I had written for my friends. Like my friends used to meet me after a long, long period. And, you know, they all changed, also changed. So the poem says, it's a very small poem. It says, पर अब मैं वहां नहीं रहता. You know, I said, कुछ लोग मुझे ढूंढने आते हैं, पर मैं अब वहां नहीं. दोस्ती, कशिश, वस्ल की सराय है. इन्हीं में अदावत और रंजिश के बिस्तरों पर सुस्ताकर गुजरता हूँ. बेनाम उम्र के निर्वात में ढूंढता हूँ खुद को. अगर कभी मिल गया तुमको तो बता देना. So the idea is
आनंद जी, आपकी जो पहली बात आपने बोली थी और अभी जो कविता, उसमें बड़ा ही मेल है. पहले आपने कहा खुद से मैं अनभिज्ञ हूँ, मुझसे मेरा परिचय करा दो, और फिर आप कह रहे हैं कि जो है अगर मैं कहीं मिल जाऊं तो मुझे बता देना. मैं अपने आप में ही खो चुका हूँ. थैंक यू सो मच. ब्यूटिफुल लाइन्स, ब्यूटिफुल. Sunita, I have gone through your book, Dance of the Flamingo. Have read it, and I would like if you could maybe read out something which is your favorite from that book of yours, and you know, tell our audience and why you wrote it, what made you write it, what were the thoughts that were going behind it, something to that effect, so that our audience, especially our students, understand the working of the brain, the working of the mind while you are putting it on paper. Hello. Yeah. So, as Anandji said, that we borrow thoughts and they come in the aura, in the energy. And it is not at a very conscious level, because when we are reading Tennyson or we are reading Wordsworth, there are so many words, but along with the words, there is a certain feeling which a master poet is able to transcend or go beyond those words. It's the feeling. And it is that feeling which connects us to the poet. And the moment that happens, that connect happens, it becomes something which stays on forever. And that is why reading poetry of different poets, especially all these poets who have the master poets, and it really enriches us and provides us with a kind of, it makes us think. And for me, that has been always there since childhood, because poetry has been, like I told you, a very important part of my growing up. And I'm going to read out a poem of mine, which is called Why Poetry. It was written on World Poetry Day, March 23rd, recently. So I'm not reading from my book. Sorry, I forgot. So, so, so I'm going to read that out since it's in my phone. So I'm going to use a digital device, but I store it, my poetry. So let me read out that. Why poetry? That's the title. Why poetry? Poetry, because every time I stumbled and fell, poetry comforted. When the harsh world got too much, it was her pillow which rested. In her silent power. Now, poetry for me is a her, because I think women are more compassionate, caring. So remember that on the voice there. So, yes, is a when the harsh world got too much, it was her pillow which rested me. In her silent bower, I sat by the gentle rivers. Her chirping birds, her chirping birds became my troubadours. It was her mirror that I glanced into to look for Sylvia's young girl, and filled my soul with Emily's hope, intoxicated by portions of Elizabeth's love sonnets. Poetry became my paramour. There were times when she turned into a prophet, teaching me lessons of life. She read from the leaves of Tahir's tree, Faiz, Gulzar, Javed, or Bachchan. In her charmed land, there were no boundaries. In her charmed land, there were no boundaries or differences. The rebel and the obedient all lived as one. The rebel and the obedient all lived as one. Just like in a school, there are rebellious children and obedient children. You've taken something which I was about to say. So now the rebels in the hall and the obedient ones in the hall. You all know that literature is a philosophy of life, and there is nothing right or wrong. Give expression to it. You will all blossom into beautiful human beings. Sunita, that made me sort of think of a little poem that I had written sometime. Actually, read one before I move on. Coming from her, it is तन्हाई के आगोश में पतझड़ के बिस्तर पर कंकड़ों का सिरहाना बना बेबसी की चादर ओढ़ सो रहा था मेरा दिल. Talk about it later, but I am very much impressed by परिचय जी. आप जो है कुछ ये बताइए कि आपकी मनोस्थिति का, आपकी जो कविताएं हैं उससे मनोस्थिति का क्या क्या है? So something which I've been wanting to know.
धन्यवाद कृष्णा जी. जब मैं कुछ कविता लिखता हूँ तो उसकी जो रचना प्रक्रिया किस तरह से लिखी जाती है, कई बार मुझे लगता है हमारे इतने सारे विद्यार्थी मौजूद उपस्थित हैं, कविता हो जाती कविता प्रयास से नहीं होती, जैसे प्रेम हो जाए. वो हमारे जीवन में कविता एक मेरे लिए आंतरिक एक आलाप. मैं खुद से बात करता, जैसे मैं सोसाइटी से बात करता हूँ वैसे मैं खुद से बात करता हूँ. वो मेरा भीतरी रंग, इनर कलर है. और जैसे होली जीवन की है, जैसे दिवाली में दिए जीवन के लिए, ने कहा कि जैसे 1000 दिए मेरे सामने थे, वैसे कविता मेरे सामने 1000 दिए गया है. वो एक रूपक, एक मेटाफर. जब हम जिंदगी को कविता की तरह से और कविता को जिंदगी की तरह से देखते हैं, दुख से संवाद. जब हम कभी दुखी होते हैं तो कविता पढ़ते हैं, जब हम बहुत खुश होते हैं तो भी कविता पढ़ते हैं. वो हमारे नकारात्मकता को दूर करने का बहुत बड़ा साधन. जब भी भीतर लगता है कि हम कहीं दूषित हो रहे हैं, हो रहे, तो डिटॉक्सिफिकेशन का जो पहला काम करती है वो कविता है. विषहीन बनाती है. हमारी पूरी जिंदगी विष में, दुनिया में इतने सारे संघर्ष, इतने अनाचार, दूसरे देशों पर दूसरे देशों के कब्जे, हर चीज की होड़ मची, लेकिन कविता उसमें स्पेस की तरह से एक बढ़िया एक जगह की तरह भर के आया. इसलिए मैं हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स को बहुत धन्यवाद दूंगा रूपाली जी को, उन्होंने ये स्पेस निकाला जीवन में, कविता के लिए स्पेस निकाला, कविता के लिए जिंदगी. मित्रों, जब किसी प्रियजन का विछोह होता है तो कविता आती है. रुदाली आपने देखी? रुदाली एक पोएट्री. आप रोते हैं तो कविता. गांव में जो धान के लगाती है स्त्रियां मजदूरी में, तो रोपनी के गीत गाती है. बच्चा जब पैदा होता है तो सोहर गाया जाता है, वो कविता है. जब शादी ब्याह होता है तो 4 स्त्रियां मिलकर गीत गाती है, वो कविता है. हमारे लिए कविता के रंग वहां से. जब कोई मजदूर खेती में जाते हुए, खेत में जाते हुए, किसान किसी खेत में जाते हुए अपने अंतर्मन की बात गाता है, वो मेरे लिए कविता है. पिताकान महापात्र एक नेनुआ के फूल को देख करके बीत जाते हैं, उससे कविता नहीं. जगन्नाथ प्रसाद दास प्रख्यात उड़िया कवि, वो काला हांडी के दुख को देख करके कवि हो जाते. दुख हमें कवि बने. हर कोई दुखी कवि नहीं हो सकता, लेकिन अगर कोई कवि बनेगा तो दुख से ही कवि बनेगा. करुणा कवि बनाती है. वाल्मीकि ने करुणा नहीं की होती तो रामायण नहीं. इसलिए मेरे लिए कविता करुणा का आधार है, आधारभूत तथ्य है. मैं उस तरह की जहाँ जिंदगी का संघर्ष हो, करुणा हो, मनुष्य के मन का आप्लावन हो और जिंदगी झूम के नाचे, मेरे लिए वो कविता.
एक कविता तो बनती है।
जस्ट मैंने एक दो कविताएं लिखी थी, वो अगर मुझे आप कभी पढ़ना चाहें नेट पे तो आप परिचय दास टाइप करेंगे तो बहुत सी कविताएं मिलेंगी, या अगर परिचय दास नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी टाइप करेंगे तो उसमें आएगा। जिंदगी से उम्मीद की शायरी कर, जिंदगी से उम्मीद की शायरी कर, जो आखिरी लोग हैं उनसे बराबरी कर। जिंदगी से उम्मीद की शायरी कर, जो आखिरी लोग हैं उनसे बराबरी कर। धरती पे उतर आएंगे तारे, धरती पे उतर आएंगे तारे, बस सबसे सुलूक आदमी से आदमी कर। कुछ ऐसा कर ले अपने इर्द गिर्द, कुछ ऐसा कर ले अपने इर्द गिर्द, हर परिंदे को उड़ान की बेहतरी कर। हर परिंदे को उड़ान की बेहतरी कर। जो हार गया, जो हार गया वो भी क्या है, जो हार गया ये भी क्या आदमी है। हमेशा दिल में फैसले की आवाज़ी, हमेशा दिल में हौसले की आवाज़ी है। और आखिर इसका बंद, हर कोई तुम्हारा दोस्त दोस्त, ये हमारे जो दोस्त युवा साथी बैठे हैं, हर कोई तुम्हारा दोस्त हो सकता है। दुश्मन से दोस्त की तरह इज्जतें जुस्तजू कर। दुश्मन से दोस्त की तरह इज्जतें जुस्तजू कर। जिंदगी से उम्मीद की शायरी कर, जो आखिरी लोग हैं उनसे बराबरी।
अगर हम दुश्मनों से दोस्त की तरह बर्ताव करने लगेंगे तो ये झगड़े, ये लड़ाइयाँ जो चल रही हैं वही समाप्त हो जाएगी। बहुत खूब आपने कहा कि जीवन तो बेटा एक कविता है, उसमें अनेक रंग भरे हुए हैं। आपके ऊपर है आप कौन सा रंग, ये आपके ऊपर है। अब मैं कितने मिनट, कितना बचा हुआ टाइम, अकॉर्डिंगली वी विल गो। दैट इज व्हाट वी आर डूइंग। सो अब जरा कुछ सवाल जवाब हो जाए बच्चे। ओके, so this is open to you and ask questions. Fire. Yes, Peter, there.
Once my friend, she asked me, life is beautiful or maybe it's not. The living or the dead, whose life do you remorse the most? So I would like to ask you, who is that you remorse for the most, the living or the dead?
Who would you like to ask this? Pose this question to? Anyone? She's saying that to whom do you relate with, the living or the dead in poetry? No.
Who do you remorse for?
Whom do you remorse for?
See, in psychology, the doctors really find it very difficult to make a human being move away from imitating himself. Our problem is that we are so much of ourselves. Every morning when I wake up, I become myself. There are so many times when in the morning I ask myself, can I not wake up as something else than being myself? So, remorse, when you're talking about remorse, when you are talking about an emotion, when you are talking about a loss in companionship, when you are talking about a loss in connection. Say, for example, me and my father, I lost him. I remember him so often. Not, not always because he's not there, but because I cannot understand him, but I am not moving ahead, you know. So I helplessly become myself. So trying to, whenever there is remorse, you are actually fighting with yourself. You are becoming yourself again. It's like, you are in a situation and the remorse brings you back there. The remorse brings you back there. So at times, the poetic flow, the way you let your poetry flow, the way you keep expressing yourself brings an acceptance. In Hindi, we talk about Sakshi Bhav. That is the capability to separate yourself and view yourself from a distance. Like in the case of remorse, you would say, Main dukh mein hu," something like that. So the minute you say Main dukh mein hu," you become a Sakshi, you don't become yourself. So that way, writing about the situation can help. But remorse is entirely about your own self, not being where you were. It's about the change. That's how. Have I been able to answer your question?
Thank you, sir. Yes, Vijay.
A very good morning to all of the inspirations out here. My question is to Professor Anand Khatri.
My question is to Professor Anand again, and my question says that did your interest in poetry come from an external influence or a personal discovery? Because as I heard you saying that you started poetry in ninth grade, which is the same as my case, and I really want to relate it to, like, is it really according to the discoveries that we come across or the personal experiences that we come across that inspire you to develop it? Thank you.
Why I come amongst young children and why I talk about poetry, therapy, poetic consciousness is because it requires a little bit of handholding. It doesn't, it's never born to you. Most the children who are trying to at one time explain earlier how we are born as an animal, how we start experiencing and rethinking emotions to become what we are, and how we keep on applying our mind. So somebody has to tell you that yes, the difference in between what you are able to interpret in your mind and your heart in terms of language and what your inquiry is. Maybe your inquiry is much higher than what language can contain. I was reading about a story of three prisoners in World War One who were from three different countries. So the next morning they would either be executed or maybe whatever would happen. So they were lying on the same bed, and so one of them started murmuring a rhythm, right? And the other responded to the rhythm in his own language or in his own. So imagine the situation. So the rhythm. So somebody has to tell you that the rhythms you are experiencing inside cannot be expressed in language, and that is why they use metaphors. The writing of languages is required. Poetry does not have grammar. Yes, Chand and Chad has, as sir mentioned about Atre Manidas, he talks about Chad and Chand and the power of Chand and how the construction of poetry makes it a mantra and that mantra protects you. So, but from your inquiry, yes, somebody has to hold your hand. My hand was held by my grandfather, who corrected something that I was writing because I was just writing. So he said, no, this correction is required, and this makes it a poem. Somebody has to look at your piece of art and say, wow, and then you start taking that path of expression. So it is required.
Anyone who can stand up. Morning, one and all present here. My question is from Meeta ma'am. Ma'am, what you try to achieve? Ma'am, expressing yourself.
Really, sir. My question is from Smita ma'am. What you write poetry? If it's about expressing yourself, stories, articles, but one only.
May I know your name?
It's Veerika Models.
Okay, Arpita, thank you for asking me, giving me that honor to answer your question. So, yes, I write prose articles like you're saying. Why only poetry?
Mastering poetry.
Mastering poetry. Okay. See, you love so many things. You like so many things, but there is something which you really love. When you love something, you want to go deep into it. Like if you like poetry and you also like prose, you will read prose, you read lots of stories. Similarly, I read a lot of storybooks, I read a lot of fiction, sometimes non-fiction. I have written a non-fiction too, a biography, which was set in a social and a political melee of the times, the environment of those times, which required a lot of research for me. So I had to do that because I wanted to write that book. So when you are writing a book and you really want to write it, when you love something, it's like if you love maths, which I don't. I just managed to pass. So if you love maths, then you would all the time, doing that. I used to love literature. And my math sir used to say, ये तो आप तो बस शेक्सपियर ही पढ़ती रहती हैं. And that is how it is. If you love something, you want to delve deep into it. Right? Have I answered? Yes, over here.
Okay, I'm Ishaq now. I related a lot to Sunita ma'am when she said how the society like almost makes you feel guilty sometimes. Have emotions. For the longest time, and as when I first started writing poetry, fear kind of spoiled my courage. So I wanted to ask, like, how do you have the courage to share and the ability to share your vulnerability?
Yes, ma'am. It requires a lot of courage to share your vulnerabilities, put yourself out there and express your emotions. And believe me, that's the greatest courage. Putting yourself out there for everyone to see. But, it comes with something which is deep down inside you. Like I said, you delve deep down inside yourself and your feelings of fear, jealous, these are negative emotions I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the positivity. Positive ones are easier to handle, probably. But the negative ones, where you feel guilty sometimes, almost of feeling fearful, of feeling jealous, these emotions are with everybody. But when you read, that is why I'm telling you, when you read people, great poets, and you read their poems, and then you realize that those emotions actually are very universal. They have written about it, their vulnerabilities. I even say, some people have written about their prejudices also and their fears. So when you read them, you realize that when you're writing, my writing mentor said that when you're writing, you just write. It should come whatever you're feeling. At that time, your mind is not going to judge. So leave the judgment aside. You are just writing. After you write, it becomes your poem or whatever piece of writing which you are doing it. So that is how my mentor helped me to understand that I do not have to judge myself also. Have I answered your question? Very, very, very right? What I want to say one more line is that when you are vulnerable, you have exposed yourself. Once you have exposed yourself, you know that lots of things are coming back to you. But then you become a stronger person. You have learned to deal with it. You have learned to face it. And once that is conquered, that threshold has been crossed, nothing will come in your way. You will be ready for bigger challenges, isn't it?
So that that book stating Kavita Gandhi. So personally, reading it, it is that whenever I write a poem, it's of course like so whenever I'm trying to write a
home during a loss of a loved one or maybe a disease that I went through, I find it really challenging to revisit those memories, take it, write it down. Is there any way I can not feel guilty and be able to revisit those memories without feeling guilty again?
बहुत अच्छा सवाल है, बैठिए। मैंने ये कहा था कि दुख से कविता बनती है। ये नहीं है कि मैं लिखता हूं तो मुझे दुख होता है, ये दोनों अलग बात है। बहुत सुंदर प्रश्न, बहुत ही खूबसूरत सवाल है। मुझे बड़ी खुशी ये हो रही है कि इतने अच्छे अच्छे सवाल पूछे जा रहे हैं। और हमारे जो मैं ताली बजानी चाहिए, उनके लिए क्लैपिंग करनी चाहिए कि हमारे बहुत सुंदर प्रश्नों को लेकर के विद्यार्थी आएंगे और वो सत्य मैंने तुरंत प्रश्न पूछ रहे हैं, तुरंत उसका उत्तर दे रहे हैं। प्रश्न पे मैं आ रहा हूँ। बहुत सुंदर बात इन्होंने कही कि जो कविता है ना, स्मृतियों का आकार है, मेमोरीज से आती है। लेकिन कविता, जैसा मैंने अपने छोटे से संभाषण में कहा भी था, कि कविता कोई इंटेलेक्चुअल एक्सरसाइज, कविता के स्ट्रक्चर में, कविता की संरचना में बहुत से तथ्य इन्वॉल्व होते हैं, जिसमें आपकी भावनाएं, आपकी स्मृतियां, आपके भाषाई ज्ञान, आपकी समझ, आपका कौतुक और आपकी स्किल शामिल है। आपके पास बहुत दुख हो तो भी आप कवि नहीं हो सकते। जैसे आपके पैर में चोट लगी होगी तो आप कवि नहीं बन, या आपको अगर सामाजिक भेदभाव झेलना पड़ेगा तो आप संत रैदास नहीं हो जाए। वह डिस्टिंक्ट होती है, एक विशेष तादाद में होता है, वह नहीं। वह क्या होता है जब पता चलेगा मैं जरूर आऊंगा। यह कविता रहस्य का डिस्टिक एक आधार। दुनिया की सबसे सुंदर कविता वो है जिसे एक बार में नहीं समझी। कबीर की कविता इसलिए अच्छी कविता है कि 1000 बार समझेंगे तो 1000 अर्थ इसके निकलते। तुलसीदास का रामचरितमानस इसलिए महत्वपूर्ण है कि लाखों बार पढ़ने पर एक चौपाई के लाख अर्थ। वह क्यों है? क्योंकि उसमें मनुष्य जाति की स्मृतियों का, भावनाओं का, जिंदगी का, व्यवहारिकता का, समन्वय मतलब एक दूसरे से तालमेल का। देखिए, मैं छोटा सा उदाहरण, तुलसीदास ने शाक्तों का, वैष्णवों का और शैवों का, क्योंकि हमारे बच्चे छोटे हैं, मैं थोड़ा साफ बता दूं, जो शक्ति के उपासक, जो शिव के उपासक लोग हैं, जो राम के उपासक लोग हैं, तुलसी के समय में सब झगड़ते हैं। निर्गुण वाले सगुण से झगड़। तो कवि का काम क्या है? समन्वय कर, सबको कनेक्ट कर। साहित्य शब्द का अर्थ होता है साहित्य, साहित्य माने कनेक्शन, कनेक्ट। तो उन्होंने शाक्तों को वैष्णवों से, वैष्णव को शैवों से जोड़ा और कहा कि अगुण और सगुण में कोई अंतर नहीं। उनकी लाइन आपको अपनी बात को समाप्त करूंगा। अगुण ही सगुण ही कछु नहीं थे। इतनी बड़ी बात उन्होंने की, वो इसलिए कही कि लोगों में सामंजस्य स्पष्ट हो। आज कवि का काम और बड़ा। दुनिया में इतनी हिंसा, दुनिया में इतनी आपाधापी है, इतनी मारकाट है, या बाहर मारकाट है, भीतर मारकाट उससे भी है। हम चिताओं में जलते रहते, प्रतिक्षण मरते रहते, हम जिंदा कहाँ? ये जिंदगी लाने के लिए स्थितियों को उलीचना होता है, अपनी भावनाओं को हारना होता है, अपने रंगों को एक बार लाना, और फिर से जिंदगी जीनी होती है। एक अच्छी कविता है।
Maybe we take just one or two questions more.
Yes.
Okay. I'll leave it to the teachers too. There are so many hands, I don't know whom to ask.
I'm Yushi from APSSB. So I have a funny question. Actually, I have two questions. So, like, the first one goes like, you are a famous poet. So does your poems actually have like do you guys keep your poetic devices in mind while writing poems?
This is a very funny question. Like whenever I read a poem, I'm like, wow, this is a very nice poem. It has so many poetic verses. How did the poet manage to, do those poetic verses while writing? I'm very inspired by it. And then I was like, you guys are saying that like, whatever comes to your mind, that like I write things and they're not in poetic devices. Today I post my poems, get my poems printed, and then I don't know.
They'll be blank verse.
Yeah, exactly. But that is what my question was that do you really keep it in mind, or do you, after writing, do you go like, this line should have alliteration, this line should have as well, then the lines.
Will not be able to answer your question, but I have to pinpoint something that has been emphasized in this question answer session. More than often, the difference between you and me, I can verbalize and say what I feel. And when I say that, I write it also, and I give it to you in a piece of paper. When you write it, that's why I said you hesitate. The youth hesitates. They feel that whether this emotion is correct. So that is what is to be addressed through poetry. Had many times used the word counseling. You don't need counseling. In my generation, we never needed counseling. Friends were counselors. We hid a lot of stuff from them, and we were never open. That's true, as much for you as much was it for me. But over the years, I have learned not to hide. I can say, I can speak, and that is the point of liberation. That is the point of being self. So I'll leave your question to somebody else, but this particular point of not being able to or maybe feeling guilty of feeling is something that was said thrice. That is what I have to come to you, that feel the liberation. There is no feeling that you have which none of us has not experienced. This world is either a mental material, a physical material, or a emotional. And we are the same. The difference is you are living it from your perspective, and I have lived it from my perspective. That's it.
I wanted to answer a question about poetic devices. Well, let me tell you, we are all learners, at least I am. So we have, even as poets in my poetry group, and wherever we do poetry, we have sessions like we have in April, a National Poetry Writing Month, where we have prompts and we have to write to that prompt. So it may be a ballad which we have to write. It may be a villanelle which we have to write. It may be a sonnet which we have to write. Some have also evolved new forms of writing. So poetry is all right. It starts as an emotion, but to grow as a poet, you have to, there are boundaries, restrictions. Blank verse, of course, is there. There are ways in which you have to, a lyrical poetry. So you have to follow that and learn that if you want to grow as a poet. So you have a point. It's a very good question. I second question is that how? I can see ma'am standing there and she look into my eyes and then she's glare and then she stare.
So there's a question which ma'am wants to do. Ma'am wants to say something. Ma'am is a wonderful poet herself. Subha ma'am is here. A big round of applause for her.
Yeah. And I when I read that, just one like
Absolutely right. I bet you were talking about one.
Lines from Subha.
book section said what can you do. So when started, I just looked around and I said, it is a way of happiness, but only for friends. जी एक शहर नजर ढूंढती है खुशी हर नजर मन है जरा सी हंसी थी वो लड़कियां कितने खुशी थी हंसी सी वर्षों व्यक्ति की लगती रही थी वो तो मौसम की बनती नहीं थी सावन की झमझम भरी सी बिखरी पलक सोई पड़ी थी इसी तरह से जाती है full poem I'll have to consult but it just came out of me and my child and I got it.
Beautiful. So poetry is not written, it comes from the heart. And while they were talking about vulnerability, he said, I can say things I need not hide, I'm not guilty. So today I can say something, I'm not guilty of what I wrote sometimes back. It broke, this glass. Pieces we picked up to reconstruct that glass. With great difficulty we did, only to find the scars were visible. Right? So this is what poetry is. So now with much I would like to conclude. Thank you so much, you lovely audience. The three poets are here with you. You can always catch them after the session is over. But one little thing I would like to tell all of you is that if you have not read the poem, it's by Rudyard Kipling. It is a philosophy of life. It's life itself. You will learn so many things. You will learn to be level-headed. You learn to face obstacles. You learn to face challenges, success, failure, everything in it. It's a beautiful, beautiful poem. And to end up saying one thing, and that is a poem that I wrote for my son when he was a little depressed. He was a little sad, not depressed. And what I wrote for him is for all those who would like to know. एक शहर आएगी कभी उजाला विश्व में लाएगी वही आशाओं का दीप दमकेगा कभी मेरे बेटे निराश न हो कभी मैं रहूं साथ तेरे कभी उठूंगी मैं तब एक खुशी तेरी नाज तुझ पर करूंगी हमेशा यूं मेरे बेटे निराश न होगा कभी. So this is how we end. And as I end by saying, a drop of ink can make a million things. So millions of you can think with just a little drop of ink. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session. All the poets, we are indeed grateful for your presence. I think it was a very engrossing session where we could actually have a powerful flow of emotions and this a big part of the great. So may I request President Sankalp Sahodaya, our members of Sankalp Sahodaya, Mamta Mani ma'am, Anubha ma'am to kindly be on stage, or office bearers to be on stage, Rupali Dhawan ma'am to be on stage, please. A small token of our gratitude to our planter, to our poets, a planter for, maybe have a planter for Professor Anand Khatri. Ma'am, could you please present a planter to sir? A token of our gratitude. That a souvenir and a small token. Thank you, sir, for making this venue such a beautiful exchange of emotions. Please take a pic. Thank you so much, sir. May we have Sunita Singh ma'am to kindly be on stage, a small planter. as a token of gratitude to ma'am. A token of our gratitude again. Can we have some music as a background so that it sounds very nice? Just a token, a souvenir. Thank you, ma'am, for such an engaging session. May I request Parichya Das sir to kindly be on stage. A small token from our side, a counter for this refreshing poetry. A small token of our gratitude for sir. May we request Sutapa ma'am to kindly be on stage. Thank you, sir. दर्द को भी कैसे खूबसूरती से प्रेजेंट करते हैं सर, वो आज हमारे बच्चों को समझाया है, उसके दर्द की जरूरत नहीं है, उसी को एक्सप्रेस करना अगर आप सीख जाए तो बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट है हमारे बच्चों. I request small token of our gratitude for Rachna Pakistan, our moderator. Souvenir for ma'am too. Mani ma'am, can we have some music as a backdrop, please? Thank you, ma'am. May I request ma'am to kindly and express our gratitude to Sutapa ma'am. Small token, ma'am, our gratitude. A souvenir for the Lit Fest. Thank you, ma'am. May I request ma'am to kindly express our gratitude to Mamta Many ma'am. Mamta Many ma'am, please. For weaving the magic in the skating ring. We can see students completely engaged, mesmerized. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And I request Ms. Rupali Dhawan ma'am to speak a few words. Just a small thing. Patricia, just 1 minute. There were children who had too many queries. So children who had more queries, you can write it down. You can be in a skating way. If you have some queries, you can write it down. Dr. Vishali, can you please down, please? All those who have queries, Dr. Vishali, can you raise your hand, please? So that everybody can see Dr. Vishali. Right? You can go with Dr. Vishali if you have any queries. Call the poets. Okay?
आप पढ़ती ना मैं तो बिल्कुल मैं अपना बोले छोड़ो
नया career start.
अच्छा
Start actually.
Parichaya sir, Sunita ma'am. I've never been a part of such an enthralling session. Rajna, thank you so much for hosting it. I think I'm myself going to start writing poetry. I'm definitely going to encourage my grown-up kids now who've gone through a whole lot of turmoil, bullying, abuse in their life. I think this is the best form of expression, and I love hearing that poetry is now spilling. Yeah, that's how we can express it. I love knowing that it's not really the outcome, but how you feel inside. You know, that. Thank you so much, Katrina. And Purchase, thank you so much. कि दुख से ही कविता बनती, कविता से कभी कोई दुखी नहीं होता, कोई करुणा नहीं. And there are so many things that I have learned today in this session. I am hoping there will be recording somewhere which I can play to both my kids also, and I can listen. Thank you all so much. I wanted to but I chatting my place here. Thank you all so much. I would just like to take 2 minutes. Dear students, dear Sudha ma'am, all the principals, faculty of Sankalp Sahodaya, distinguished artists, guests, welcome to day 4 of the HD Space Literary and Cultural Fest in association with Sankalp Sahodaya. It is for Hindustan, this is not, but it is a celebration of imagination, poetry, love for story, love for reading and writing, which is what we believe. My heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Acharya. The moment I spoke to her about wanting to do a cultural fest, and she jumped ahead and she did. She said, I am going to involve my entire Sankalp in it, Sahodaya in it, because we are all interested in activities like this. So thank you all. Heartfelt gratitude to all of you for partnering and collaborating with Hindustan Times and the HD Place. It is fortunately, just to share with you, it is our 25th year of celebration of HD Place. Thank you so much. We wanted it to be really special this year. So we've done multitude of activities in making artists of 100 students who have actually gone and hosted shows live on Radio 1. We've had hundreds of internships with Hindustan Times. We've had activities like the G20 quiz that we hosted in October in synergy with
our presidency for the year. Participated then. And what better way to finish our year with a bang than do this cultural and lit fest. Thank you all again very much. In this 7-day festival that we are hosting, we are doing 50 activities across 7 venues. We have more than 15,000 students who are participating in this, and more than 200 schools are participating. So thank you much to all of you. Together with Sankalp Sahodaya, we aim to create an event that not only celebrates literature but also fosters love for reading. Before I leave the stage, immense gratitude and for coming here and the whole energy in the way this session, the kind of questions you had, I'm surprised. I couldn't think this way when I was young, and maybe even today. So extremely proud of you and thank you for making this event possible. Stay tuned to the Hindustan Times and HT Phase. We have more interesting activities planned in the coming academic year, and we would love for all of you to give us feedback on what is it that you want and what is it that to you. We would love to do those. Cheers to a celebration of stories and the magic they bring into our lives. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, ma'am, for those fantastic words of motivation. We start with our next section. We start with our next section, in between lines. Only the wise learn how to read in between the lines, it is said. Meaning isn't always found in the words themselves, but rather in spaces in between the lines. For the same, may I request Dr. Manisha Sharma, Principal, Venkateshwar International School, to kindly take over as the moderator of the session in between the lines. Thank you, ma'am. Our next guest, may I invite Ms. Sunita Bansal, author, mythologist, storyteller. Ma'am has been involved in all for over 4 decades and has written numerous articles, stories, poems, played board games, news short film. A photo is she has authored 26 books for adults and young children, including the philosophy of mythology, and a thousand book for children on folk literature and scriptures. Amongst her bestsellers are Krishna, the Management Guru, and Everyday. May I invite Dr. Harshini Singh. Ma'am is a member of the Consumer Forum, an author, a poet, an academician, an operational therapist, and a painter. She won Right India Season 2 and initiated all the Times of India group. She has been confirmed with Iconic Photo Award 2022 by Aesthetic International Lifestyle magazine. Her book, Paradox of Dream, is longlisted for the Oxford Bookstore Book Cover Prize 2023. Our next guest is Ms. Prerna Jain. Ma'am is a creative artist who tells stories through her photographs and words. Her essays and photographs have been published in newspapers, magazines, online publication of repute, both in India and abroad. Stories she tells ranges from stories of nature and wildlife to lives of ordinary people she sees in the streets. She has published a critical book on birds, My Feathered Friends, and a book of short stories, stories usual yet unusual. We welcome you on stage, and with this, our request Dr. Manisha Sharma and kindly take over as the moderator of the session. But before that, I just want to say students who are sitting in the back to kindly move forward. Also, students after the session who want to go, canteen facilities are available. This over to you, ma'am. Good afternoon, children. I hope you enjoyed the time into poetry session. We're going to big round of applause. We heard 3 days. Only 3 days.
Such three wonderful women authors we have it, and I'm sure that it is going to be a very, very captivating, interesting, exciting session. My dear children and dear audience, stories of the timeless essence of wisdom, carrying the echoes of the past, possibilities of the present, and dreams of the future. In the pages of a book, we find refuge from the chaos of the world. Isn't it so? When you read stories, when you read anecdotes, when you read narrative, you really forget everybody anything. Isn't it so? So I'm just moving on, and I would like to really connect and have this conversation with all the three great eminent authors. And so my first question will be from Sunita Bansal ma'am. Our latest bestseller just told Krishna the Manifesto, and everyday Gita garnered acclaim from readers worldwide. So it is my privilege to discuss the final aspects of our creative pursuits. And the first and the most important question, because mythology, and I'm sure children will also be interested. So, ma'am, what inspired you to take these scriptures into your narratives, making them relevant and captivating for today's audience?
Thank you. Right, Shrita. Thank you for the nice day and vision, of course. Let me first say one thing. My younger daughter, her first story when she was 7 years old was published by Ishta Press. So I have this kind of fondness for this event also. So to answer your question, you see, I started writing at a very young age in class 2. And the inspiration for my writing, I would say there was any inspiration, it was something probably genetic. Frankly speaking, mythology is genetically kind of wired into me. Why? Because when I was very young, I was not in school. My grandmother used to tell me stories, mythological. And eventually, I realized that she told me only mythological stories. And at that point of time, of course, I didn't know, there were much mythology, but whatever, it was generally from the scriptures. So that's how, I grew up surrounded by characters who were very real to me and grew up with them. So it was very natural talking about them, for the last 3 4 decades. So that is how it works. So I mean, there was no inspiration. It was just
I would like to know that how do you make this ancient philosophy and everything accessible and engaging for different age groups? That is it.
Oh, that again simple. You see, when my grandmother told me stories, she never said one, and she would say Krishna and Ram and Hanuman, things like that. So it never occurred to me. I never grew up with them as gods. So for me, they were like regular guys, your friends. Okay. So obviously, when you consider them at the same level, we talk like ourselves. So when I have children, I talk to them. And as I was writing, my teenage daughters. So again, it was very convenient to say these things are very practical. So they were convenient. I would write something, kind of say it out in front of my daughter. She would like it, or she would smile, or she would tell me upfront that this is not making sense. So they were the ones who talked. So I've been speaking, writing in the language of my readers. So the examples and everything they come from them, from life. I don't speak or write in complicated language, which even I have to probably figure out, to try to find meanings from dictionary or whatever. I just speak my heart out in the simplest possible words for my readers who I know will understand them. That's the way.
Absolutely, children. Like if you start writing, it's very important that how to connect with your readers. The language you should super easily get flowing so that juggling with the dictionaries or anything, you're comprehending, you're understanding, you enjoy. Very good take from you, ma'am. Now I'm moving to Harsha Singh, ma'am. And I know, I just wondering when I was reading all her profile, she is a member judge in the district. She's a painter. She's writing from Haveli to Anakari, so many wonderful books. The big round of applause for Shadi, ma'am. And I mean, my based on this solely, how does your work as and your involvement in social cause shape the way you tell stories and advocate certain issues of life literature?
Thank you for that question and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all are enjoying yourselves thus far. Yes? Okay, now my question, before I answer the question that has been given to me, how many of you read? That's quite a wonderful. And how many of you write? That's equally one. So I'm before all of you who are readers and writers and authors in your own right. And you're also studying, you're also teaching, you're also you're also involved in other profession. And as we were hearing a little while back, that if you love something, you will find time for it. It is all about priority. If I know that I like to play football, if I know I like to play cricket or a video game, I will make time for it. Similarly, for me, that my profession is when I work as a judge, I'm a judicial officer, but I'm not able to get away from my life. And so I bring it out in my writing. The reason being that you're constantly surrounded by angst all the time. People come to you in the court of law when they have actually exhausted every other way or form of redressal. So they'll come to you, hoping that you will find some way of addressing their grievance, addressing their problems. And when you are surrounded by this at all times, writing becomes cathartic. Writing becomes a need and a way to question because change comes through questioning. Change comes to exploring what you are not able to understand. That why is this happening in our society? And hence, my writing comes from a very real place, as Sunita was also saying, that writing which people are able to relate to, I feel personally for me also comes from a very real place. So when I'm writing about issues that women face on an everyday basis about domestic violence, about marital rape, about feeling of abandonment, about feeling of that they're not happy in the place they are, though there's nothing really wrong in their lives. These are all things that is all around me at all most of the day. I mean, for most of the day. And so when I sit down to write, it is an exploration into why life is like that. So, but I'm writing about these issues because I'm at my age and experience. When you will write about what you are, everybody has that existential crisis that all of you have. I'm sure each one of us sitting here is thinking about something that is nagging them at the back of their head. And that is your story. And that is your poetry. So I think my stories and my topics, themes come from what I see around me and to understand how I would, as a person, uh, you know, grow with that, evolve when I write. Another thing that I took away from the last session, because usually, we're on this side. So when we're on that side, you come away with so many things that uh, you have to see where you are after you have written a story, a poetry, a poem, etc. And that really spoke to me that at the end of my book, when I had finished that manuscript, I'm a changed person. I'm a changed human being. And I think that really spoke to me. And I think my writing is very similar to that and related to that a lot. Because each book, each story, each poem, you are changing, you are evolving, and in the best way possible.
Well said, ma'am. Because Ali is right in this. But one thing, let me say that we don't write to evolve. We write for the sake of writing to express ourselves. We feel about a certain thing and we want to talk about it. Hence, we kind of vent it out on this talk these days. So, but we realize that we have changed. So we change everything that we write. Every book that I have written has changed me. Because when you're writing, you're ruminating, you're thinking, you're analyzing, you're doing so much inside, which normally sitting, or watching TV, something we may not do. But when you're writing, we do so much activity, mental activity, it results in normal amount of emotion. That's what. Very good take to each one of us when in this era of technology, we are all television or laptops or anything, children, first of all, whatever you love, you'll find out time for that. Isn't it so? However, coaching culture is there, or J examination is there, or NEET examination preparation is there, but love it strongly, you will find time for that. Isn't it so? And what both the eminent authors said, that whenever you write, I mean, you have that is there. You really are evolving as a person also, isn't it so? It's not like it's just a mechanical job. They said I really like to repeat that. Watching television is just a mechanical process. But when you are involved in any creative pursuits, you are evolving as a human being. It is improving, it is transforming you as an individual. So please remain glued in your and busy and engrossed in your creative pursuits. That is very, very important. But more question I would like to ask Najia, that winning the Right India season and being selected top 10 by Amitabh Ghosh are significant achievements. How have these remarkable achievements and experiences impacted your life? And please do share your thoughts on your most activity.
Thank you so much. Yes, Right India was, I mean, what can I say? It was a platform that was given to me when I was just starting out. So I was always writing, as I'm sure all of you are, whether journaling or writing in your small diary that you are not sure you want to show it to other people, etc. But I started taking myself very seriously, writing seriously in the sense that I thought, okay, this is a story now. I can share it with the world. I can bring the baby into the world and allow it to be looked at. And that was in 2014-15 when I realized that this is a story that I want to talk about or write about. And once I had written that, you look around you, you look at your peers, as you do in your classrooms, as you do in with your colleagues, that, where am I? Where is my space? Where do I fit in? And at that point of time, Right India happened. Now, if you're not aware, Right India is a platform that gives all writers, it's like a crowdsource competition. So a prompt is given and you have to put in your stories, and your stories are then judged by eminent writers who are prolific in the craft of writing. So when I won Right India season 2, I won it on the prompt of Chitra Devagurni. Have you all, any of you heard of Chitra Devagurni? Palace of Illusions? Yes. So I won on her prompt, and it was a dream come true. I was on cloud nine, and she handed me the prize. And it was as if, someone tells you that, okay, you're on the right path, don't worry. And that was uh, the probably the catapult I needed to actually take off after that. And there was no looking back. And I thank Vanita Nandia, who's the director of Times of India, who organized the meeting. She was the starting point, so to say, or the initiator of that. Who kind of mentored me after that. And then the third season happened when my story was picked up in the first 10 by Amitabh Ghosh. Now, these are all authors we look up to. When we read their books, we think, my God, I would die to write like that. And when they say, no, you're doing good work and, we choose you out, those are the stories that come to them. It feels that, my path is right and I just need to work hard, hone my craft, be true to myself, be true to my voice. And that was what I needed. And so, thankfully, things happened by the grace of God, by kind friends, who kind of came together and supported me. And after that, now I look forward to my book coming out called Anarkali, as you were asking. Anarkali is the new book that's coming, and I'm very excited because it took me many, many years to research on this book to find out what I wanted to write about. Normally, you all know about Anarkali? Have you heard the name Anarkali? Yes. Salim Akbar? Yes. So I wrote about Anarkali from the point of her as only the woman. It's written in first person, which is slightly tough to do, I realize. So I wrote that book with only the focus that it is about this woman, that I refuse to accept that she could only be this one-dimensional woman who was only known for her love affair. I refused to accept it because she went into the harem of King Akbar when she was very young. So, and there's so much hierarchy that happens in the harem. So how did this girl survive having no, there was nobody backing her. There was no godfather, godmother, as colloquially we say, and yet she survived and became the most beautiful, most cherished courtesan for King Akbar, and also had. They say that they also had an affair with his son Salim or Jahangir, as you might know in the history books. That was one point which always kind of nagged me. It was a thorn in my head that I refused to believe that a woman this strong could only be known for her love of it. That could not be true. And the second thing was there's nothing in history about her. There is no mention of her in Akbarnama, which is the chronicles of King Akbar's time, or in Jahangir, in the chronicles of Jahangir's time. There was completely, it was as if someone had erased her and they don't want her to be aware of the lady who was much loved by these two very powerful and very socially, loved kings. So that was my reason to write this book, and I hope you all. I look forward to your reviews, and I hope you'll pick it up. The book should be released by the end of the year or beginning of next year. And so yeah, that has been the journey so far. It has been very, very adventurous with a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah, good and key takeaway that we can also pick up some characters and deep into there. That's really, really very interesting to know about all these things from Himanshi ma'am. So now I move to Brenda Jen ma'am, and she's a columnist. And children, when I just talked to her on a just single phone call, she sent me all her books and kuch aam, kuch khas. I started reading also. It reminded me of my childhood days when we used to read stories of Premchand, Kafan, those lottery short stories. I can find those shades in those short stories also. Just 200 pages. Convey you so much, I believe. I mean, you trust me. I this story is very, very interesting. And then all the words, you are such a talented photographer also. Talk about only studying, it's too much work. But you see these wonderful ladies and others are not only dwelling in writing, so many pursuits. So, ma'am, and that photograph I found one free hand and the chicks to beat the story around that. So interesting, so interesting. So let me just ask you one thing. Your collection of short stories, which I started reading also, stories, and that's the translation. Stories usual yet unusual, covers a range of women's issues that I realized that. Why do you explore these themes? We believe storytelling can contribute to discussions on such topics. What is the content of storytelling such issue?
So these stories are not actually, I would not even call them stories. They are all the happening with me. And these are the stories told to me by my mother, grandmother, the neighborhood auntie, or the domestic help in my house. And a few of them by my grandmother. I was very lucky to interact with them. How did that impact me or how it can impact? Because through my stories, while writing them, I realized that when we see a story through one character, we don't realize that it has an impact on all the other people around. All the characters make it. Like in a composition, there is a main subject and there are the supporting subjects. Same happens in stories. So that is how gradually I started with a little bit of artistic liberty. I put that on paper. And then most of them are biographical, some are autobiographical. That's why they sound so good. There is definite amount of truth. Maybe 10% in some stories or 80% in the others. But that is not. Thank you so much for comparing stories or giving a hint of such great writing.
ask one more question related to this only. You are also columnist and you work there also for Hindustan Times and you have worked with technology also, SEO or artificial intelligence. I see that diverse in so many. How does journalists stop plagiarizing? Are these specific challenges or advantages to writing fiction versus journalistic?
My essays in Hindustan Times are mostly my work as photographer, for wildlife. And I have seen wildlife pictures for more than a decade. In and around bird sanctuaries and even in Delhi from my balcony, let me tell you, I've made 45 species of birds from my balcony in South Delhi. Believe me, guys, people talk about the pollution and everything. They don't talk about the number of birds we have here. So, and how it happened was that there was a jungle vacant plot. There were 67 streets there, and I could see birds coming and nesting and all that. And later on, there was a concrete jungle instead of the real trees, and that hurt me a lot. So this is how I started writing for Hindustan Times. And then I wrote about my journey as a gardener, how is self-sufficient. I create my own compost, and then this is how. And the last piece, one of the most like this is one example that I wrote for Hindustan Times that was about the monkeys of Tughlaqabad. They used a lot of monkeys. There still are a lot of monkeys there. And all of a sudden, I've been visiting them for more than a decade. Taking like really amazing photographs have been published in newspapers in London and other places as well. I started to realize that there is a metro station coming up there, and the places where they used to hang out that is not monkey friendly anymore. So that made me write a piece on the swing and to learn about the monkeys enjoy themselves and how we can be creative. But then there was one about the dogs. There are a lot of story about stray dogs biting. And I wondered, dogs find everywhere. At temples, there no boundary for them. They are there. How come all of a sudden they started attacking? So then I realized I went back to a story, my childhood, that in the villages, whenever they get the first roti was given to the cow, and white was left dogs. That was the stray dog. And how that is how they were fed. So they were satisfied. And now, because of these urbanization of those traditional things are going away, and that is what is hurting. So that is how I started. I started right in.
Interesting to know that your personal experiences are reflected in your writing, and as mentioned, there used to be a custom in so many Indian households. How so, once again, coming to our veteran Sunita Balsana, and my question is this: I know that your recent bestseller, Krishna, the management group, and Everyday Gita have been very well received, and that you have also written. Can you share the key idea or lesson that you think readers can connect?
First of all, add to what Prerna said that I started writing as a journalist. In Hindustan Times of Politics, and also and but at that time I was a columnist with Hindustan Times and I used to write in nutrition, column in nutrition, because I had trained as a dietitian. Now coming to writing, and as she rightly got it, observant and creative, if you're sensitive, the creativity comes out. When you observe it, you start observing things. You travel calm, you observe,
writing comes. So any person who's a good observer can write. The rest of it is something on the side. Writing is from observation. That's why the books that you mentioned, Everyday Gita and Krishna Math, they're in there. And those books are Krishna was eventually, see, I'm not studying management, but when the publisher asked me to do write, I have to actually read up. Management is quite boring. So what I did is note down a few terms to make my book ready. Let people over find it. Of course, they as soon as it's been bought. But the idea behind the book was that I should take stories from Krishna's life, anecdotes from his life, and show how Krishna, solve problems, pricing. And that I, it was easy. So I think it's very short and that was. This is a very popular story about poverty. So everyone is aware of poverty. That typical image of mountain, one finger. Now that is a familiar. But I think I go behind the movie. I think deeper into the original. So in that, what I was that and Krishna is an adolescent. And this whole thing that time to not was a yogi that this village was doing. And they were collecting tested environment, collecting the stuff that they had put, all that was happening. So he asked Dad, why is this happening? What is this? Father explained that again, we have to just to appreciate India because your age and especially how the system works. Science, numerous, what a cycle, you know. So he explained to his father that clouds, sensitive. But his father said we have to talk like this. This is something which happens. And so we have to do it. Okay, Krishna was very curious kid and was very persistent also. So he went on talking to everybody in the building. But why are you doing this? You know, clouds like this way. Basically convince not to put the and to use the stuff that the using it that you and use it to get it good. They realize that they not they was observing this. Because this dad was years and years learning from shape. Suddenly this will stop. All and they people got worried and this what they listen to the kid. What at the time did not very rare that shows his big goal. Right through his life, he doesn't show this one of the very few times he actually does it. Because he's pushed. So what he and that is exactly what happened in 7 days. He had then was tired of planning. Gave up. That more happened. But this is what this is what I was trying to tell my readers through the book that you should ask questions. You should learn to ask questions. That's what Buddha used to say. But understand what I'm saying. Ask your questions and see, that sinks in. If you think you can relate to it, then follow. Same thing. Every Gita also
the reason for its popularity is language young adults. Like when I talk about being balanced, in your thought, it's the shopping things. You want to buy a pair of blue shoes market, you don't get the blue that you want, you get your size. So there it is. Wisdom. I'm not getting my size. So students get learn that balancing it. Think, pause, and ask yourself what am I heard of the color? If I want to shoot, then I should go pick up whatever color is very nice. But what do you do? Then I should place the order on the shoe. Nice. But why should I need that? So that I'm not getting the shoe. Then to the time the shoe comes, I continue remaining in the that is about how to utilize in a mention that is the pleasure right? That is Buddha's wife. At the same feeling, I felt that everyone talks about what woman, how he left me hanging. And there's nothing much. I mean, there is very history, very little. And I have to do so much research to find what happened about it. So that's the reason I don't know 100%, but now, why not use that? So that's the please, we can add the emotion to it, we get the research, we plot a timeline, and the creative liberty is motivate and and plot relevant stuff which is not from a book history. So that is the reason for my recognition there also. So I think every person who writes a study should have. Thank you so much. It's really what Matt said, mentioned. First of all, us observe. That's what first point she suggested to everyone. Unless and the final sensibilities get next observing something, we cannot try make others also to align themselves with that. So it is very important. And of course, we talk about life skills in today's life. He can give us the lessons of everyday managing our emotions, time management, so many things in our life. Can really learn mythology, these legends, and I'm sure I endorse that everybody all must read this book and everyday Gita. And there's a whole lot. Now we say our Indian heritage, culture, why not learn these things? I think the world is looking at India and from Indian mythology and legends. That is there. It's very, very great. Thank you so much, ma'am. So now my next Charlie ma'am, that is there. So besides being an author, you are an accomplished painter, as I said earlier. And how does artistic expression complement or influence your literary career spans diverse genres, from poetry to fiction? And how do you navigate forms of expression? And does your approach change depending on that?
What can I say? I'm just बहुत अच्छी बात कहेगी the earlier panelist he said very rightly that लिखना या your poetry or writing any creative pursuit हो जाता and that is actually true because in that moment you are so overwhelmed with emotion that you only try to look for a creative outlet and that is what the case is with me. It's just that I've been blessed or lucky that I am able to, express myself in several different ways. That's all. I like all of them. Poetry is my first love. Prose is something that I have found fame, happiness, recognition with. Poetry is very, as I said, it's my first love, so I hide it a lot. I still don't let it out. And painting is something which is very instantaneous. Anything you paint immediately on canvas, it there is instant gratification that you see something and you like. In fact, when I wrote my first book, A Window to Her Dreams, I was painting that. So the cover of the book is my painting, and I was very happy that the publisher said that we that only as the cover. And how it while I was writing the book, I was painting this girl. It's called The Window to Her Dreams. And she's standing at this window. We all have that place in our house, in our homes, which feels like ours. एक कोई ऐसा कोना होता है, कोई कमरा होता है, कोई खिड़की होती है, balcony होती है, where you go to think, so to introspect, express yourself to yourself. So that for that character I had created that she would stand at the window because while I was young, I was a young girl like you, I would stand at my window and think, kind of introspect or process what was happening around me. And so that translated into my book. And simultaneously, I was creating this painting, and inevitably, this girl, Aruna, I call her my tulip because, like a tulip, she was very fragile and yet so beautiful. And so it was her opportunity that was beautiful. But she needed a lot of support from all the external for her external growth. So when I was creating the story, I was also creating the painting, and that just happened very naturally, very organically. And as I've always been writing, I've always been painting watercolors, oils, etc. I've done a couple of solo exhibitions in India Habitat Center. Now, with age or maybe with experience or whatever, I've kind of slowed down. So now I want to write more and maybe paint only on commission. But I love all of them. They're like all of them. So I love all of them equally. I just pay attention to one at a time, then go to the next whenever that calls out to me. Because the muse is very important. When the muse is sitting next to you, never ever ignore it. On the next day. So these are all the different aspects of me. These are all the different facets of me. They're all me. So I love fully. And people, so I've been blessed by people who support different facets of me because they understand it. So someone may like me more and paintings more, or your poetry more, or your writing more. But eventually it's all me. So I hope that they call up, well, they come from a very real place. That I think that's a repetitive thing that all of us think. That anything comes from within. If the truth shines through.
Right? You can paint too. Yeah. But it's like to know experience it.
And we just did that question that so many people of you are writing, so many of you are writing, so many of you are reading. So obviously everybody says read more, because if you stop reading, you stop yourself something. Think that I know everything, I don't need to learn anything. There is no age to learning. I am still learning. Seniors who are sitting, we are all still learning. So if you are even at that, I know some of you are, in fact, many of you are published writers. Own your craft, learn art, make sure that you surround yourself with a close-knit circle of people who are the same thing, and make sure that you stay humble. I think humility will, in any given situation, support you, hold you up, and being arrogant or feeling that I know everything. So I think just remember, at least be mindful of that. It's very natural. So many people around us who think, oh my God, I have achieved everything. But even if you're mindful of the fact that I am stepping into that very quicksand of arrogant behavior, then pull yourself back. So I think just my suggestion is just be mindful and learn to be silent. Because I think silence will take out colors from your life as nothing else will. It's okay if you don't have a comment on something that's happening around you. You don't need to have a view on everything that's happening. It's okay to just listen to someone else and let them shine. It's okay to hold yourself back. It's okay.
Gratifying and must nurture and preserve such value, which is very important in this era. And now I asked Prerna Jain ma'am, your books have been translated. You have written, isn't it? So what is originally written in Hindi and translated by different experts. The essence and nuance of your narrative are preserved in translation. So that's very, very important.
Yes, I chose to write Hindi. Initially, I started in English, but then I realized that my characters were all Hindi, and I would do justice to them if I write in Hindi. So I wrote in Hindi, and then I found the right translation. I realized that translation is not a because as I interacted with them, each one of them finding the right word for the right word. Like I sometimes quote Gulzar. He would write something like Gobar ke uple. Up now, that makes an impact on kind of picture a village and on the wall they are cow. When you write cow dung cake, it won't make that impact. There is definitely some part lost in it. Like for example, in one of my stories, I had used Iqbal ka एक शेर है. लाजिम है दिल के पास रहने पास बाने भी, लेकिन उसे कुछ देर तन्हा भी. When it translated into English, and that was omitted. So there is definitely that. But if not for translation, we would have read all Russian literature and Bengali Assamese and all those beautiful stories. So that is have to take. Have to decide what language.
Language has its own culture, and we try to do justice, but there are certain expressions who are there. Read your story and usual and get unusual, and the protagonist resiliently face many challenges, right? From first to second, that is the wonderful story I have read. So important is to portray empowerment and resilience in your stories.
There are various why women or men for that matter face difficulties. That could be class difference, there could be caste issues, there could be financial issues. But what I realized in my experience was that even like we are talking about mythological characters, the way they handled it, they seem power, but they really are. Right? And they are powerful. I like to ask the question, which I am not sure that can be answered. We talk about the story of Savitri and Satyava. And all we were told about as children that Savitri was a pious lady and Sati that what we thought is that Savitri was a very brave woman. A woman like Yamaraj is that people would not even talk about Yamaraj. Then she stood in front of him and she defeated Yamaraj. And how many of us talk about Savitri's intelligence? We talk about Sati Savitri. Even the so same way about characters in the present day. You see that many India wali story. Husband and one day the husband beats her child, which beats him back. No, and but even then, speaks Arham lag gaya, yes, she does justify that character remains. She is found taking care.
I mean, we all must read those stories. Again, I'm saying just 200 pages, so much is there, and wondering what is there, and keep on reflecting. So thank you so much. Now we can keep the house open. And I know that so they are very excited. They want to ask questions. So three annual models. We have just had conversation. Yeah. So now your question.
Like, so asking the society the concept is such a key.
Um, that's a wonderful question. Actually, nobody's asked me this ever before. So yes, we do write about the thorns of the rose per se. Uh, but we also make sure that by, at least I do, I'm talking about myself. I like happy endings. So I uh, try to show the conflict, of course, because that is that's the foundation of your story. But in my books, I make sure that the woman finds the strength within herself, that she is her knight. There is nobody coming to save you, because in practical life, that is what happens. You write from experience. So of course, if you're asking me the practical position of how to write the story, there are workshops. There's always practice. There is always mentoring. So there are several ways that you can learn how to write a story, whether it's a short story or a full form or a long prose. So that's the practical aspect. But the first thing that starts is the idea. What do you want to write about? When I look at you, and I look at the sea of young blood that is sitting before me, I I wish that I had written more and I had not torn up those pieces that I wrote at that point of time. Because at the moment, everything is existential crisis for you. Whether it's your parents, whether it's your studying, whether it's what you want to do, everything is like an overwhelming emotion that you are feeling right now. So actually, you should start writing right now and don't destroy them. This is my next suggestion to all of you. Don't destroy your pieces, however they may be. Keep them safe. There may come a time when you want to revisit them. Because actually, the truest story that for me has been that when I read a story that I read when I was young, and then I read it after a decade, I took away other things from it which I hadn't been able to see when I was maybe not that evolved, or maybe I was not that intelligent. So according to your experience, according to your time in life, your circumstances, your external forces that are present as you grow up, you start imbibing and absorbing things from the same piece of work that you may not be able to do at an earlier stage. So that I think is the true essence of the story. That's the book you want to write. That's the piece of poetry you want to write, as you were hearing earlier as well. Um, so that is the art. The art is to have no rules. But I always, as a precursor, I say that I always compare writing to driving. So, how do you drive? You learn how to drive. So learn how to write. I'm not saying break any traffic rules at all. You can break writing rules. So I think that should answer your question. I hope that write from the heart, right from your true voice, right from the voice that comes from within. And I'm very sure that people and you will, if you love the work, you are confident with it, you will stand with it to whether anybody else likes it or not. But in my observation, anything that comes from the heart is loved.
Take the next question. Yes.
My question is for Shali ma'am. So, what here there might be some budding authors. So I am among one of them. So, what advice would you like to give us so that we can take our books to the next level?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes. How much have you written? What do you write? Short stories? Wow. Wow, wonderful. Sci-fi as well. Is it? So to take it to the next level, I think all you need to do is keep writing. There's no shortcut in writing. There's no shortcut in life. We just like to tell ourselves that it is there, but actually there isn't. Nothing beats hard work, elbow grease, burning the midnight oil. We still do it. We work from 6 days a week from 9 to maybe 8 or 6 or whatever, and then go home, finish our work in the house, and then sit and write. Some people get up early morning. I'm sure you get up early morning or sit late at night to study, but you still write. So because you love it so much. To take it to the next level, all you need to do is, as I said earlier, also be more observant. Make sure that you look at something and be able to twist it on its head and say, if I look at it from this perspective, how will it be? So read more, read people who have written, uh, you know, written, have a lot of work under their belt. Learn to observe the writing style when you're reading. Normally, what used to happen when I was not really writing to showcase my work, I would enjoy. So this is one of the negatives is that now I read with the eye of a writer. So sometimes I have to pull back and say, no, I'm just reading this book. I want to enjoy the story. I don't want to, kind of critical, find critical nuances to this work. But when you are wanting to take your work to the next level, as you asked, you need to do that. You need to read someone's work and see what they have done to make the book so relatable that is not so much in your face. So these are the things you can do. So read more, make sure that you read it with the eye of a writer. That what are they doing? How have they done it? Attend maybe podcasts, attend different workshops. So these are a few things that you can make sure that your writing comes to the next level. That helps.
Good afternoon. I'm Akshay from St. Mary's for Dwarka. My question is for Prerna ma'am. When crafting characters, how do you ensure that it's authentic and relatable to readers?
When we talk about writing, so it has to be not just Bahujan Sukhai, Swanta Sukhai. Like first, it has to convince you that what you are writing, you have to think like this is my thoughts. I think as a character, I am like there are 4 characters in the book. I would think from the perspective of all the 4, and not just me, because then I won't be fair. And if I'm thinking from the 4 of them, I'll be able to see the reactions. And then I have to think of the environment. And in that case, uh, I make sure that at least some part of it is true in my writing. Like suppose I have set up my story in a house. I start thinking perspective of if I'm writing about my domestic, like she is in the kitchen and how it would start working. I start thinking in terms of then gradually other characters would come in and then that is how I work. So that makes them credible. Because there is some maybe the sound thing or the utensils around it. Maybe I'll start from